Welcome to Die Hard on a Blank, the podcast where we explore the influence of Die Hard on action cinema, one action movie at a time. I'm Philip Cawthorne, and with me as always is Liam Billingham, and today's film is Reign of Fire.
It's Die Hard with dragons. Whoa, boy, blowing fire.
I'll be honest. It was a stretch.
Yeah, well,
but I really wanted to do this movie, and I particularly wanted to do this movie with our special guest, the returning
champion,
Die Hard on a Blank All-Star. Very few people have made it to do a hat trick on this show, which is where we cap it for all guests. But by popular demand, we have
the people
brought back the people's champion,
clamoring,
Rob Hackett. Welcome back to the show, sir. How are you?
Thank you guys. I couldn't be more excited to be back here. I feel like I'm your biggest fan. I probably annoy you guys with my little asides, and I email you.
Are you kidding me? I dine out on those for a week.
But it's like my favorite thing to do is it's like stockpile like 3 episodes and then just do a binge and listen to all of them. So
that's
I'm
awesome.
super humbled to be in the 3-time club, especially given some of the people that you guys keep inviting back. I'm like, holy shit, these people are incredible sort of film academics, brilliant minds.
Well,
so,
you're in their camp, so to speak. You're in their camp, and their burned out, ashed out camp, trying to stay alive. Avoid the dragons.
I was wondering whether we should say the prayer together, like at the start of the show, like the prayer from this movie.
Unbelievable.
What is it? What do you remember? What it is? By the way, it's like what is it? Like what do we do when we sleep?
Yes.
Keep one eye on the sky. I guess I'm gonna come in hot and heavy. Just say that I fucking love this movie.
Yeah!
I think it's rad.
Baby. I can't wait.
So, but let's start with you, Rob, as our guest. What's your relationship with this somewhat quite strange, quite atypical, quite unusual motion picture, Reign of Fire?
It is really strange. And when you guys asked me, I literally went into like the memory warehouse and was like, okay, what was my first experience seeing it? And I remember very clearly, back in high school, would always do double features on Friday nights with a group of buddies. And this movie had the unfortunate sort of circumstance of opening the same weekend as Road to Perdition. Some people would say masterpiece. I saw that first, and then we went into Reign of Fire thinking, okay, Road to Perdition is going to be heavy, awards contender, and then Reign of Fire will be less heavy and less sort of downbeats. That was not the case, as we will get into. And I remember we all came out of those movies that night just like exhausted. And I will say, I remember even then, as a very forgiving viewer of pretty much every movie I watch, I remember being slightly disappointed in Reign of Fire, even back then. And I think that was the disposition around it when it came out, was people were like, okay, it's Christian Bale, check. It's Matthew McConaughey, absolutely foaming at the mouth, check. It's fucking dragons in modern day, Europe, fucking check. And then I think when people saw the movie, I think the general reaction was, to your point, Phil, this movie's a little like there's something we can't wrap our arms around with it. But it's gained, like I feel like since then, like certainly a cult appreciation. And it's not hard to see why. I mean, on a technical level, it's a pretty impressive movie.
Liam, were you familiar with this one?
I was.
Before the show?
I was. I had not seen it. I remember it coming out. I remember there's I think, apocryphal story that Christian Bale was going to play the Scottish king, Macbeth, in the Boston Shakespeare Company and got offered this and did this instead. And we ended up getting J.O. Saunders, which I'm not going to complain about J.O. Saunders playing Macbeth. He was wonderful. I don't know if it's true. I've also heard it said with him playing Batman, that he was going to do it then and got Batman, and you take Batman. So I never saw it until last night, and I will say, this is my second favorite movie where Christian Bale gets beaten up by a bald man wearing a long coat. The first one being The Dark Knight Rises. This is a really strange movie. I can't say I loved it. I can say that I woke up this morning thinking about it with a pretty high degree of fascination. And I think McConaughey must have gained 30 pounds just gnawing on the scenery playing this part in this movie.
I love him in this. We'll get into it, but I love his performance.
Yeah, I actually like it too. I think he keeps the movie moving forward
Yeah.
just by pure will. Yeah.
And it's a really interesting movie. And we can break it down in the theme, but like it's so British for the first 30 minutes. This is the most like stiff, I know, Phil, I know, stiff upper lip, like, we'll break it down in the theme, but I find it really
grim up
fascinating.
North. It's grim up north.
Yeah,
Northumberland.
That's what I'll say. Yeah. It's like Henry IV if the French were dragons, right? Like
I love it.
That's kind of Henry V,
those,
maybe.
Those dead gray skies. I'm like, yes, give it to me. It's home.
Yeah, bring me.
You know.
Oh, that's good.
Fantastic. So, I remember going to see this movie, and it famously had one of the most misleading movie posters of all time, because the poster, if you're not familiar, was essentially the London skyline, the backdrop of the iconic Big Ben, and a giant dragon like blowing fire across the city.
Amazing.
Right? Which promises you something quite different than what you get. There was it mentioned the stars, but I don't. Maybe some of the posters had their faces on it, but it was sold on that sort of like high concept imagery that was like, wow, we've never seen that sort of dragons in the modern day.
Yeah, it's like Roland Emmerich with dragons, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. That's such a good way to think about it. Yeah,
a sort of disaster giant tentpole movie. What the movie actually is something quite different, but. I remember sort of thinking, okay, we didn't get that. And as I recall, I should have looked this up, but I think there's like Apache gunships fighting the dragon. So, you can, is that right? Like,
is that on the poster?
There are gunships, yes.
Yeah. So you don't get that, unfortunately. So, little Philly was a bit disappointed with that aspect, but I loved it. I just thought, this is such what I will say about this film is it is truly unique and truly original. We have never seen anything like this before or since. And I think while there are certain, issues with the film, for me, it is, again, to quote the phrase we come back to a lot from courtesy of Corey Attard, a great example of a 3-star, 5-star movie. And so I really, really like it. I saw it when it came out. I think I revisited it just maybe once in the last 20 years. Always enjoyed it, and then watched it again for this. And honestly, I will say for the first half of it, I was like, is this the greatest movie ever made? And then it kind of falls off once you get into we're going to go and get this dragon with a helicopter. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like thrilling. And then it sort of gets a little bit jankier, I think, in the second half. But I still think there's so much to love about this movie.
And I think it's funny you say that. Like, I remember too, like Empire Magazine doing like a movie preview, and one of the images that they stole for the preview was like Bale holding up the egg. Which and it goes to this, like, you could almost take any screen grab from this movie and it would feel like iconic. Like a lot of the photography is really sort of spectacular. Albeit a little, like we said, gray. And I think there's a lack of geography in a lot of aspects of the movie, but I think the imagery is really powerful. And I think they knew what they were doing when they had Alice Krige show up right in the beginning. They're trying to announce what kind of movie this is, the caliber of acting that they're going to go for.
Yeah,
and I think that opening sequence is really striking.
I agree.
It's really striking, and it sets a tone. And that sense of dread really does permeate the rest of the movie.
It's a great prologue, and it's lovely. Like the kid is great.
Yeah, he is really good.
You immediately like him.
Yep.
You sort of feel for him. He's like kind of got a sort of strong attitude and personality, but he's also clearly quite vulnerable. Yeah. I don't know about you guys as well as dads. For me now, when I see kids in movies, I kind of project my own kid onto them sometimes. So you have an instant sense of sort of empathy for, especially a kid that's like a bit vulnerable and in maybe in a distressing situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, Alice Krige, RSC, legendary figure. Of course, we talked about her and gushed about her amazing performance in Star Trek. First Contact.
So this isn't a trivia quiz question. Okay,
It's not.
I wasn't going to say anything because I was like,
it's going to be hard to get through. There wasn't. I'm sure we'll probably step on a trivia quiz landmine at some point. That's okay.
Question about her to you guys. I mean, that First Contact performance, definitely an awards caliber performance. why not more prominent? Like, is that by choice? Does she just prefer the stage? Like, what
that's
is
a
it?
good
Like,
question.
I feel like she's in a lot of stuff, but I feel like she could have done so much more because she's such an arresting screen presence.
Yeah, I couldn't. I mean, I couldn't say. From I remember researching it for that one that I believe she was South African, but she was an RSC member and an incredible stage actor. And I couldn't sort of beyond that. I couldn't speak to it. She did win, I believe, a Saturn Award for that movie. So there's a
For
science
First
fiction
Contact?
specific award. But it sort of goes to show that it sort of transcends what people might think, that no one could do an awards caliber performance in a Star Trek movie. Well, if you watch her work in it, it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, she's incredible.
It is sort of has I mean, you have a Shakespearean actor at the center of it in the Patrick Stewart iterations, and she's very much, so they found something very interesting in that. But yeah, I think that prologue is great. But let's get the fast facts in play, and then we can move into the sort of some of the meatier discussions here, because I know that Liam had some fantastic takes that he was texting me this morning. I'm excited to tell you about. So this movie was directed by Rob Bowman. Interesting figure, sort of a, I don't know, would a genre journeyman be a fair with the utmost respect, because I think he's a really good director, and he shot the part of Castle, so I'm sure he's just like the money truck must be pulling up on a daily basis, and good for him. I
think in some ways iconic. Like, I think his contributions to X-Files, obviously, and I think Millennium as well. Like, I think was a guy that people really thought, like everybody that was associated with the X-Files, like, he had that sort of contact high, and people really respected him. And I think it was, again, one of the reasons people were so excited about this movie is that Rob was like one of those sort of genre icons at the time, for sure.
He's able to elevate it, isn't he? He's able to sort of take maybe traditional science fiction stuff that maybe people think is a bit rote, and take it to a higher level, I think. I think it's great,
I really like that X-Files first movie, Fight the Future. I think it's one of the great... So I remember seeing that in the movie theater, and I was a huge X-Files guy, and kind of being like, wow, they did it. Like, they found a way to expand on the mythology. It still feels like an episode of the week without detracting. It still felt like an episode of the show, just on like a much grander scale, which is like a pretty impressive achievement. It's
hard to do, isn't it? Yeah, it's hard to do.
Yeah, and I think he's good with actors. Like, I think if you look at that movie, there's a lot of really recognizable character actors in the X-Files movie, and obviously here this cast is stacked.
Yeah, it works its way around the ensemble quite neatly. The screenplay was by Greg Chabot, Kevin Peterka, Matt Greenberg, based on a story by Chabot and Peterka. It stars Matthew McConaughey, Christian Bale, Isabella Scorupco, Gerard Butler in the house. We're going to talk about him. Absolutely amazing in this, like, delightful in it, and a bit of a kind of a discovery at the time, I think, because he was sort of on the rise but hadn't maybe quite crested yet. It was shot by Adrian Biddle, which we'll talk about as well, which is worth noting as a legendary DP. Distributed by Buena Vista. The release date was 12th of July 2002, so summer picture.
So downbeat for a summer movie.
It's
so
very
fascinating.
Much so. The tone is very bleak.
Yeah.
And the aesthetic as well. Yeah.
I also want to say, because you mentioned, I don't know what I assume is a writing team, but Matt Greenberg is a wonderful guy, a very talented writer, wrote one of my favorite genre movies, 1408, which I can only imagine how challenging of an adaptation that was.
I like 1408.
And, he's a great. Matt is a terrific genre writer.
Shout out to Matt.
And I could tell just from firsthand experience, a really lovely guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's nice tip of the hat there for Matt. The budget of this film was $60 million, quite high.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess. Yes, about right. I suppose it's sort of like maybe punching a bit above its weight by marketing it as this Roland Emmerich-esque, like, gigantic movie, but it's something a little bit smaller. It ended up grossing 82.2 million, so sort of a modest profit, but I'm sure not considered. Not a base hit, perhaps, not a home run. Now, let's talk about why we're discussing it on this show in a section that we like to call
Die Hard DNA.
or a section that we like to call tenuous links to just to so that Phil can jam Rain of Fire into the show.
Son of a...
So, all right. So what I have got, and here's my sort of case for the defense here. The film is largely focused around one central location, the castle, which is frequently under siege from forces both inside and outside its walls. It's largely a two-hander involving a power struggle between two very different men who are also kind of similar in some ways. The blue-collar, back-footed good guy is massively outnumbered and faces seemingly impossible odds, although he does have one loyal ally to help him. One notable sequence in that aforementioned prologue includes a sequence where an explosion rips up an elevator shaft. So very Die Hard adjacent imagery there. The American contingent in the movie, which we'll talk about, have a typically gung-ho approach to solving the crisis.
But yeah, sure.
Yeehaw! Right? Massive guns, paramilitary hardware, very much in the spirit of Sin in the Car.
Sin in the Car.
You know, it gets off on that kind of hardware and stuff. And aesthetically, we have helicopters, armored vehicles, makeshift weapons, improvised explosive devices fashioned from available materials, as well as an abundance of fire. So those were the sort of basic things that I caught in order to justify this film's inclusion. Do you have any, would you guys have any addendums, additions?
I do think there's a little bit of like characters coming back from the dead as well. I mean, I think McConaughey survives a pretty brutal assault on his caravan.
Yes.
And he's the one survivor. It's a little bit echoes of Carl. But I think you got all of the tenuous connections.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
good. We'll move on.
Well, it turns out the dragon is German,
Don't
so I
scrutinize
think
it too
that makes a big difference in terms
The
of
dragon's German.
Yeah, I read online. Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, they asked you.
I like where you're going with that.
Yeah. No, I didn't find any. I will say it's weird to watch a movie that talks about epidemiology that takes place in 2020. That's all I'll say about another weird tenuous connection.
Yes.
It's weird as well. The trailer, funnily enough, says it's like 2054.
Yeah.
So it's like the marketing had hadn't even seen the movie.
No, I have a feeling they were, based on the marketing, they were trying to compensate all the way through for what they knew was a very downbeat and sort of bizarre kind of movie-going experience. And so you could see it all over the place where they were, even in some of what were probably last-minute edits of the movie, they were trying really hard to find those little wins.
And in fairness to the marketing team, it got people in the theater. It got me in the theater. I mean, it was a total lie, but they got my money. I didn't get the gunships shooting the dragons, apart from the kind of very cleverly cut credit sequence. But nonetheless, I didn't feel shortchanged, so I think it worked out well for everyone. Let's dig into all of this in much more detail after this quick break. And we're back.
I have a small theory, Phil.
Okay.
I wonder, and I'm curious from your perspective, do you think there was an iteration of this movie? Because my guess is that Matt Greenberg was brought in later in the process. Mm-hmm. Do you think there was an iteration of Reign of Fire that did not feature the McConaughey character?
Yes!
And that whole concept was grafted into this to make it feel more like a bigger summer tentpole.
That would make sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the more obvious thing is to do a sort of traditional siege movie.
That's right.
Right. Structurally, it's quite strange that this group turn up. There is a little bit. I mean, one of it's a little bit Road Warrior.
Yes.
Right. Like to some extent, there's a sort of. I mean, the whole thing is kind of Mad Max-y, slightly dystopian future, but then you have this kind of band of marauders, and there's a goal, and then eventually they go on a kind of odyssey to London. So it does feel, you're right, sort of structurally, it feels like two slightly different storytelling paradigms colliding. But for me, I don't mind that. I think it makes it kind of interesting.
Cool.
And
I feel like Bale and McConaughey are basically the same character. They just have different accents, more or less. Like, because it feels to me like the tete-a-tete, the philosophical sort of debate was going to be between Butler and Bale, right? Bale's the steadfast guy who doesn't want to evolve, wants the status quo, and his arc is going to be basically what it is in the movie, right? And McConaughey's kind of the same character, and I feel like they brought him in, not realizing that they were essentially they're essentially one half of the same sort of.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well,
maybe.
You
should ask Matt.
Yeah, I feel like I want to know.
Call him up. Let's get him on the line. This movie
Yeah.
bears a not so passing resemblance to another movie that came out this year, 28 Days Later, in the way that it uses like post-apocalyptic England's landscape as this like trajectory and place that it's want to go. And like what I find most fascinating, to your point, Rob, about like where's the non-McConaughey version of this? Like, is that this to me is like such a stiff upper lip complimentary British survival drama in the vein of like, you know, it feels so British. The buildings, the kind of like the everything burned out. Like it feels like the end of a Shakespearean tragedy where this movie begins, right? And like Butler later is in Coriolanus, one of his more underrated kind of roles. Like the precedent, I should say, the table is set for this like movie about survival in the after time. Like I think the most brilliant scene in this movie is the almost Greek tragedy take on the Star Wars scene. Like these are the myths that we're telling, and like
genius.
I wanted more of. I know that wouldn't exactly be like a hit, but I wanted them to like lean into the like what are the after times. Bale's trying to keep everyone alive. He's not ambitious. He just wants to survive. Like let's keep things going. And then like the first 30 minutes of it are that movie. Like there's a debate about should we go get the fruit from the garden. Like that's the first 25 minutes of this movie is like the fruit.
Well, what I
in
like
the
about
garden.
it as well, though, is that they all have a good argument. And I like in the conflict between McConaughey and Bale's characters, they both have a good argument.
Yeah.
They're both sort of like Bale's like, look, let's just stay here, defend what we have, wait it out, survive, and play it sort of safe and conservative. Whereas McConaughey is the brash American, you know,
suicidal
stereotype.
Ideation through heroics mentality. Like totally.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, he's Quint, exactly.
Let's get the premise in play though, because we have to. Rob, you know, I know you're so excited to do it, and I love the enthusiasm. You jumped the gun and we missed our Tenet bit.
Classic Matthew,
and you have
classic
to be
American, just jumping in the
You
front.
have to be included in that, Rob.
Yeah.
So this is where the anatomy of an action movie is where we explore the tenets.
We live in a dragon world.
I was going to give Rob the chance to
say
this bit's gone to shit.
I know. I'm just trying to keep you guys on your toes.
Sorry, guys.
There are no friends.
But we do live in a twilight world, and they can't see at twilight.
Yeah, and there are no friends in
the
Ash.
dragons.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you get them. You get them at twilight. So we literally live in a twilight world. This was such a layup for us, and we missed it. We completely missed it.
I think I missed it because McConaughey has completely abandons that whole theory.
That's true.
He's also grunting the whole time, so it's hard to tell what he's saying.
The first tenet of anatomy of an action movie is the premise. So let me just get this in play for anyone that is unfamiliar with the film, so they have some kind of context for our jibber jabber here. So, okay, the premise is: as a young boy, the character of Quinn Abercromby is visiting the construction of an underground tunnel in London in 2002 when he stumbles on a horrifying discovery: a dormant dragon who attacks and kills the construction workers, including his mother. 20 years later, what's left of humanity is hanging by a thread following the rise of the dragons, and the now adult Quinn, played by Christian Bale, is the de facto leader of a group of survivors who have adjusted to their grim new reality and live a remote existence in a castle in Northumberland. However, their existence is disrupted by the arrival of mysterious American soldier Denton Van Zandt, Matthew McConaughey, who claims to be a dragon slayer and who might hold the key to humanity's salvation. I always like to just do, the reason I also like to do the premise, because it's a great table setup, but often it's quite illuminating as to, it's like that's in microcosm why the film doesn't totally work and why it's awesome at the same time. Because it's sort of unwieldy and it's a bit kind of, like you said, Rob, it's almost like two films that don't quite connect, but it's still so much fun.
Yes.
You know, so it does. Often the premise is quite illustrative of the discussion that we can have about how this works on a conceptual level and what it may be wrestling with.
Well,
and how well it executes.
It's also wild that it's two movies kind of, and it's an hour and 42 minutes, right? Like it's in and out.
It's pretty brisk. Yeah,
it is. It's
but a lot
tight.
happens. Yeah,
yeah, and I think a lot was probably excised. Like if you can feel it. I mean, I think the McConaughey storyline plays into everything I love, but I will say it's funny, the whole methodology that he and his team use to capture dragons, the movie speeds through them and they basically fail all along the way.
Yeah.
Like speeds through them so fast, which makes me think that's the part to me that suffers the most in the movie, which is he comes in, he has a whole way that they approach and he has a plan. It's just it all is resolved or ends so quickly. And there are so many holes in terms of how they got there, why they got there, how they ended up on the track that they ended up on. And that's what suffers when you in any movie where you have two different storylines that fit uneasily together. One always suffers, and I feel like his suffers the most, despite his commitment to the role.
Well, I had a question for you as well, because we didn't really give you a proper intro for anyone that, for shame, is not familiar with Mr. Hackett. Rob is a top executive at Atomic Monster, which is now merged with Blumhouse, correct?
Correct. So, we are a super entity now. Yeah.
So, hence his particular area of specialty and expertise in genre cinema, but also blockbusters, right? So this is what I wanted to ask you, and why I was really excited to get you on the show. And you've already touched on it a little bit, but I want to sort of pin you down. You are at the forefront of a company that specializes in both genre material and popular mainstream blockbusters. James Wan has directed a Fast and Furious movie, Aquaman, not stuff that is necessarily genre specific. So the two things kind of coexist. Therefore, and this is a film that I would say forgetting the structure for a second, and the story paradigms, it's a film that attempts to marry the two things, blockbuster and a genre movie. In your expert opinion, on that level, on a macro level, like what works and what doesn't about Reign of Fire?
I think what works is you're playing with a lot of fantasy iconography and tropes. You have castles, you have knights, you have all of those ideas. And I think the movie is trying to remix them in sort of a modern monster movie, right? And those monsters are dragons. And I think everybody comes to this movie having a touchstone for that kind of iconography. And it's really fun. I think we all wish the movie played with them more on that level. I think if it was more self-aware and having more fun with it, I think it would have led to a different experience. But I think the idea of doing a modern day Castle Siege movie with dragons is a really fun idea.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's what the movie was probably sold on. Like, holy shit. I mean, dragons have not, at that point and still, hadn't been that relevant in movies. Like, there was Dragonheart before that, and then, Dragon Slayer was like 20 years even before that. They weren't that relevant. Obviously, now we have Game of Thrones, all of those things. They're on the forefront of our minds. But
How to Train Your Dragon.
Exactly.
And, it's like very much,
But bringing them into a modern day story landscape, I think, is a really clever idea. I just don't necessarily think the movie is, I think it's trying to do too much, like you said, Phil, so it doesn't fully embrace that.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, like one thing we always talk about at our company when we're developing these things is, I think things that feel like they can happen in your own backyard, they feel like an extension of our experience, are always more effective. Necessarily that doesn't really apply to like Aquaman, but I think one of the things James did with Aquaman that was so great is he made Aquaman feel like a guy you could have a beer with. Like in Momoa's performance, like he feels like an accessible character who has to make human choices, even though he has superhuman capabilities. I think one of the challenges of this movie is that it's kind of jettisoning all recognizable things from our experience. Like Independence Day and Roland Emmerich stuff in general usually works because we're all projecting how we would deal with these circumstances. This movie isn't taking place in a reality that approximates ours. So it immediately starts to create some dissonance that I think is a little bit of a problem in terms of investing in the movie. Like, not only are you bringing in dragons, but you're bringing in a really burned out apocalyptic landscape. And I think if we got that script, we would immediately be like, okay, not only is this expensive because you're world building, but it's not necessarily relatable because none of us are going through these experiences.
Fascinating.
That is why I kind of wish it leaned into the like weirder elements of it. Like if you're going to do, look, I understand why it's a summer blockbuster, so that's not going to be, but like, that's why I wanted more of the like mythology, more of the world building, more of the like, what if Star Wars became our myth, right? Like that's what I found really effective about that 28 years later is it uses this, I believe it's a Churchill speech as the like driving momentum, and you feel all this British history and how history is playing out again. And like, I kind of wish that like, instead of it, as much as I love Star Wars, he's doing like once more into the breach, dear friends. Like I wanted it to feel like this kind of like British culture and identity has to survive. And then when these Americans show up, it's like, whose ideology for the world is going to continue in the like post-dragon apocalyptic world that we happen to be in.
It's either sort of the British sort of
Step up
slow
or
and
lip,
steady wins the race. Let's just survive, or the American. Let's take in a perennial war state.
Well,
let's take it by the throat and attack it. We might all die in the process, but at least we'll
go and glow in glory, right?
It's
like
it's sort of two different philosophical and ideological approaches,
right? The first 30 minutes are like a British Blitz film. It feels like it could have been made in like the 1940s, right? And then all of a sudden, like McConaughey shows up and he's like, and he's like doing this other thing, and like. I said to Phil jokingly on text, are the dragons the Germans and this is a World War II movie and it's about like, America saving the British or whatever, but like it doesn't lean into, you're totally right that like if they're going to make it feel very out of our reference point, then like lean into that as hard as you can, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. And I think if you look at the other movies you guys have, I've talked about with you, like Deep Rising, it's a monster movie, but it's on a cruise liner. And there's something relatable and recognizable about that. Another movie we talked about as a sort of a precursor to that is Tremors, which is so blue collar and sort of grounded, no pun intended. Like, I think when you have a monster movie like this, you're asking the audience to buy a lot, and I wonder what the movie would have been like if it felt more like an extension of our reality.
Even Terminal Velocity is like a guy in a strange environment, something that he's not used to, kind of movie, right? To bring it all back to everything we've talked about, like. Yeah, this is so not our world.
Well, it is an interesting question, just picking up on one of the threads that you left there, which is the idea of myths.
Yeah.
And, from doing a little bit of somewhat surface level research in the run up to this episode about dragons, the interesting thing that occurred to me through that process, I believe the original time, because I was like, when was the idea of dragons first introduced in any kind of culture or literature? And I believe the common belief is that it's like Mesopotamia. But essentially, what's interesting about dragons throughout time is that different cultures take that idea of the dragon and interpret it in different ways based on their individual culture. So. There's Nordic and Scandinavian interpretations of. Often it begins in the sea, and they're like a sea serpent.
Godzilla.
There's the classic English myths. In China, dragons are actually considered quite positive.
Gargoyles. Yeah.
And all of that, but essentially, the overarching thing in a lot of cultures, however there might be nuances in certain different directions, is that they symbolize chaos.
Right.
They're the chaos monster, which is a classic mythological idea. So what does the dragon symbolize anything in this film, or is it purely a face value exercise, do you think?
I think for me it's a face value exercise. Like I wish they had anthropomorphized them just a little bit more, right? Like, I mean, again, looking at like Jaws, as sort of the Mount Rushmore of these movies, like that shark comes to represent so much for those characters. As sort of like a manifestation of their respective sort of traumas and what they all have to confront. And I think you wish you got that in this. Like it's not clear what the dragon represents to not just symbolically, thematically for the movie, but for each of the characters.
Well, it's interesting you say that because we mentioned Dragonheart and nobody did I am the last one. Like nobody did that. But I think that's actually really important because like Dragonheart is not a movie well remembered, whether we like it or not. But what is remembered is Sean Connery doing that voice. And this movie lacks that. Now, it'd be kind of weird if like the dragon talked to Christian Bale. And it's like, that's not the tone of this movie. But it does feel like, the dragons feel like they're almost like another movie I weirdly thought of watching this again, The British Connection, is Dunkirk. Is Christopher Nolan's, survival masterpiece but I do think that what's missing here is like, we don't we see the dragons. It's almost like to the Jaws thing. If we didn't see the dragons for the first 40 minutes of the movie, and granted, I don't know if the VFX were there at this time, like they could have been made into something a lot scarier. But I think there's a little bit of like, oh yeah, dragons, and like, which is a bummer because the dragons are actually kind of terrifying in this movie. Like they're evil. They have like a singular focus. They're almost like a Michael Myers figure in a way in this film, and it doesn't quite capitalize.
And their intelligence as well. You know, when it backtracks them to the castle and stuff, they're not just sort of mindless beasts.
Right.
They're quite kind of cunning. But I think some of this is interesting just because of what you said, that was this idea of this is very much about the British and the Americans and two different approaches to a crisis. And, you know, I mean,
interesting. That's a really
as weird as it, the other thought that occurred to me when you brought up the World War II thing, which, by the way, the British are obsessed with World War II, right? We cannot get it out of our system. Our culture is so dominated by it. It's something I've been thinking about recently. And I think in America, it used to be a bit more like that also loomed large as like as something we could all unite behind as like a, you know, a positive thing. I think that has kind of shifted. So these echoes are definitely in there. I think it might, if it was a British director, it could have gone more in that.
I was shocked he wasn't British.
In that direction.
Yeah.
But what also occurred to me, it's a little bit dark, but this was made this comes out like shortly after 9/11, right? So we're into special relationship. We have been attacked in a building. A lot of British people died in those attacks, as well as a lot of Americans. And then both Britain and America are dealing with this a form of chaos that they have to sort of fight. But none of that, I would say, is in the film. None of that is like text, but it is interesting historical context that the time the film is made. But it doesn't do anything with that. I think it is totally, as you said, I agree. I think it's a face value. This is just a dragon movie. It's a very interesting movie.
I think that's a really interesting point, though, Phil, is like, it's always interesting. And I think as you guys get deeper into this, the decade post 9/11, looking at the way action movies changed and the way audiences, I mean, what people were going for was the opposite of this, right? Which is the Bourne movies are taking off and they're hyper real and extraordinarily violent, like, and in the genre space in particular, like torture porn, which James would lament me using that. He certainly doesn't think of Saw as that, but its sequels immediately, you know, were very gratuitous. And French extremism was happening in movies. Like, it's the opposite of like a fantasy movie like this. This, if you look at it, this is kind of straddling those two ideologies, right? You had pre and post 9/11. I feel like pre 9/11, this would have been a lighter movie.
Yeah.
Probably more self-aware, more fun. Post 9/11, you can see all of those things creeping into its execution in a real way.
Well, it carries a kind of dark, bleak, like traumatic.
It's dark.
Feel.
Well, you know, I think to that point, Rob, I love particularly that second and third Bourne movie. Like I'm a huge Paul Greengrass. He's one of my favorite filmmakers.
But when you even go back and watch them now, they're wildly downbeat.
Oh yeah,
like,
that Bourne Ultimatum is, I think, like an action masterpiece. But I think part of the reason Greengrass is such a potent filmmaker at this time, beyond being, I think, extraordinarily talented, is that this is a guy whose politics are foremost and forefront in his movies, right? Like, they're political statements, you know, and the political statement might be sort of simple, the Clive Owen character in the first one being like, look at what they make you do. But it's like, those movies are created with a political agenda. They're like James Bond post 9/11 kind of pictures. And like, you know, this movie, it's like too close to 9/11 to really have been fully realized. And it's also too early for what I think, if it were made later, might have been a quote unquote Marvelization of it, right? With like a much more world building, a TV show. Like, it wouldn't have been this one-off.
Jurassic Park's a really good comp, right? Which is, you see the 1993 movie, which is, you know, sort of a very pure example of that kind of movie. And you see now the Marvelification of that franchise too, post 9/11, for sure.
Well, it's also telling that, you know, they set it in England because presumably of the English association with dragons and mythology and
and Arthurian really cool legends.
Yes, exactly. And this cool idea that actually those myths were based on some kind of scientific truth. But because you do that, the film looks flat. You know, because our guys are generally grey.
But it's so powerful at the same time, that grayness. Like, it really works in a way.
But it makes it less commercial in a weird way.
I think it's the biggest problem with the movie, Phil, is that it is dark, and I think in gray, it's not a place you want to live.
Yeah.
And even if you look at the Mad Max movies, which are also a really sort of ugly post-apocalyptic landscape, it is sun-baked, like
vibrant
and very alive. Correct.
Yeah, well, it's also Miller, right? So it has that caffeinated, unbelievable power.
And I've said this at every cast I've done with you guys. Like, Miller is the ultimate in cinema, like on-screen geography. Like, he's just incredible at making sure the audience knows where things are happening in relation to each other. I think it's a big problem with this movie. Like, I don't understand the geography around the castle.
Yep.
A lot of people probably don't even know where Northumberland is.
Yes, right.
It's never really sort of defined, and that's kind of important because it's close to Scotland, and that plays somewhat of a part.
It's mythic too. It has a mythic kind of energy to, like, Northumberland. I think of as totally from the history plays, right? Like, that is my context for that. I was actually really excited when it said Northumberland. I was like, oh, this is so. As a non-British person, but a person who's, read all this history, like, I find it so fascinating, right? And, like, I there is a moment where I think Butler says to Bale, like, oh, are you going to be King Arthur? And I was like, yes.
Like, I kind of wanted
more of that.
I wanted more of that.
I wanted more Butler as you said, and more of that, Star Wars is like a neo-myth that they use. It's all about myths, but it's all a little bit undercooked. I mean, there's even some really strong religious stuff, like when they go to the sign, it says 666. There's a great line where it said it's 66 miles to London and someone's etched 6. There's a great line where McConaughey says, look out the window, Eden isn't burning, it's burnt. Yeah, it's a great line.
There's some really strong, the idea that they're sort of demons, and they're almost like Milton. There's almost, but it's all just like, it's only at a low simmer. They don't really commit in one way or the other. Like, this is our theme. It's about World War II, or it's about 9/11, or it's about myth, or it's about it sort of, like the whole movie, and structurally it sort of does a bunch of them, but only at a low heat, and therefore maybe the whole thing doesn't feel like a totally satisfying meal. Although for me, I say unreservedly, I still love this movie. In some ways because of its flaws, because it's in a dead grey skied England, because it's a weird collision of structures that therefore make it feel like not like a million other films that you've seen, and that it makes it less predictable. I like all of that.
I also wrote a note down, Phil, that I think speaks to that, which is, this is a fantasy movie, but not a kiddie fantasy movie, right?
It's my kind of fantasy movie, because I'm not even like a big, candidly, like super fantasy guy. But if I'm going to do if it's a fantasy movie, I want military hardware, and
Philly special.
It's set either modern day or in the future. I would, if this was, I like the one that you mentioned, Rob, from the 80s, where there was the like films like Krull or those kind of slightly like high fantasy sort of stuff. That's not necessarily really my personal taste. I don't necessarily have a total affinity for it. It needs to be a bit more robust for me. But that's what makes this movie cool. It's just such a unique oddity. Let's talk about the heroes, though. Starting with Christian Bale, because he's the first character that we meet when he's a boy, and we really follow his journey. And then the movie is like sort of intersected or invaded by the McConaughey character. So we'll talk about Christian Bale as Quinn Abercrombie first.
Quinn, Rob, his last name is Abercrombie?
Abercrombie.
Good Lord, that's amazing.
It's a mixture, interesting. I mean, even that it's a sort of mixture of like a kind of a Celtic name and kind of a very English name, I think. I'm not an expert on etymology, but that's the wrong word, isn't it? Anyway, never mind. Rob, what are your thoughts on Christian Bale's performance and this character as a hero in this movie?
Bale. I mean, he doesn't need my endorsement. The guy's incredible. I would hard pressed to find a performance that wasn't amazing on some level, and he's very good here and a very unlikable character, in my opinion. Like, I think he's so steadfast to the point that I actually I lost track of what exactly he was fighting for. Like, I didn't really understand what his objective was at a certain point. And maybe that goes to some of it's just about British resolve, and that's what he represents, as we will hunker down and we will survive. But it's so clearly not working when you come into their story that it's not, I wasn't really sure what he was after. And I kept wanting the character to go to a place where he was almost maniacal, like I wanted, that felt like the inevitable trajectory for his character, which is like he's going to commit to this to the point where he's suicidal. But again, like I was saying earlier, I feel like McConaughey kind of takes it from him, and that becomes McConaughey's sort of trajectory, ultimately leading to his demise. But Bale's very good, wildly intense as always in the movie, and I actually think his chemistry with Gerard Butler is excellent. Their relationship and their sort of dynamic is really,
you need that as well, don't you? Because he's so the character is so po-faced and miserable.
Yes.
But Gerard Butler's character really balances it out with humor and warmth and wit. It's a great point though you just made though, because from a storytelling kind of trajectory standpoint, from like a story engine standpoint, whilst there is something to be said for the idea of what you were saying, Liam, about like the Blitz spirit, and let's just sort of hunker down. That's very anti-dramatic, and it backs you into a corner narratively, because hence the idea. Well, we need at some point. That's just. You can't make a movie which like, let's just stay here and survive. That's not a movie.
Well, I was... Oh, go ahead.
Hence the introduction of the McConaughey character. But Liam, what are your thoughts on Christian Bale as Quinn Abercrombie?
Look, Christian Bale's... Christian Bale is always good, right? What I was excited about in this performance was hearing him do... Well, I guess I should ask, is this Christian Bale's natural accent?
It's pretty close to it, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
like even though he's Welsh, he does talk with a sort of London accent. I think he's like adjusted it slightly for this character.
Yeah. Can you talk about his accent a little bit, just because it's so specific and like, what do you? I'm curious, like what they're evoking with this character, because like I think he's so quintessentially British, and like I know Christian Bale is Welsh. But I'm so used to him doing the like standard flat in the sense American accent, and and he did it for press for Batman. Like I'm just so not used to hearing him speak this way, but I wonder if the choice to make him use that accent says anything specific to the character.
It's because he's from London, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. It's because he's from London.
Okay.
The character, that's a London accent. I wouldn't say necessarily specific to a part of London. It's a sort of generic kind of working class.
That's what I was wondering.
Cockney accent, but a very good one. And it's pretty close to his natural speaking voice. The thing that why I think that's really cool and logical is that it makes sense that you'd be digging the tubes, and that's how you find them. Also, again, the tubes were very much part of the Blitz and the resistance and people staying in tubes, and that's part of the Britishness of the whole endeavor. But then he flees London, which is the scene of his trauma, to your Jaws point, Rob. The death of his mother as a young boy at the hands of this dragon, essentially terrifying and mythic and powerful. And then he goes as far away as possible from that, which is basically the Scottish border, not on the edge of the northeast. So his accent is different, but then eventually he had to go back and confront his trauma and go back into the belly of the beast, into that dark cave, very Joseph Campbell, sort of stuff, although it's all a bit higgledy-piggledy, because that's only the third act. Yeah. But essentially he had to go back and confront his worst moment and his deepest fear, which is this monster that destroyed his mother. So I think that would be the rationale.
Oh, yeah. No, and I was just curious. I mean, very quickly, I think Bale's intensity is always so strong. He's such a good actor. I mean, there's like very few better actors who are also movie stars to ever do it, right? So I think he's wonderful, and I know we'll talk about him, but Jesus, more Gerard Butler.
Yes,
more Gerard Butler. Like
so good in this.
So good.
So his instant kind of like just appeal. Instant just star appeal.
I want to drink whatever that motor oil that he serves them is. I'm really curious about that.
Well, let's talk about Matthew McConaughey then, the more sort of flashier role and flashier performance than Christian Bale, who has to kind of do the sort of heavy lifting of the film without the fun. He's not a very fun character, but McConaughey is going for it as Denton Van Zandt. Rob, what are your thoughts on the character and performance?
I mean, I think the performance is go for broke. Like I will say one thing that really, really works in the movie is their opposing physicality towards each other. Like he and Bale, like when they share the frame, like you feel the intensity. Like I have to believe that there was friction on set on some level, just because they probably couldn't shut it off as easily. Like they feel so dialed in, and they're carrying some weight when they come at each other. And McConaughey is just foaming at the mouth. Like, he brings a shot of energy and adrenaline to the movie when he comes in, and he's just committed. The thing that you're missing, in my opinion, from the character is what you would get from Quint, right? Which is, I don't think you get that vulnerability or that window, that additional insight that you need to understand where the mania kind of comes from, right? Like, I like that he has what feels like a lot of affection for his men, but he also has no problem sacrificing them pretty quickly, or at least like they all kind of die pretty fast.
He barely interacts with them either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was missing that sort of that additional insight into the character, and I have to believe they did it. I can't imagine McConaughey would take the role without having that opportunity to say, like, to get in that the USS Indianapolis monologue.
Yeah,
like, you're missing it. And I find this is me being a little logic police. I have a lot of issues around the character's methodology. Like, and the way in which the movie sort of uses that stuff for the convenience of pushing the plot. That was one of my issues. But I thought McConaughey was fucking great.
He's really going for it, and like
Liam, where are you at with it?
I think it's it's a little like it's a lot, but I don't think that's a bad thing, and I think the movie needs it because like Bale is as wonderful as he is kind of stuck in second gear by the nature of the character, so to speak. It's also
the character's dour.
Yeah, it's not him;
bit,
it's the character.
I
mean, Bale can go. We all know Bale can go for it, right?
Yeah.
And this is that interesting period where he's gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight for all these parts. So like I've heard reports where he was like, I was miserable for years because I would go from like 110 pounds to 225 pounds in like a 6-month window of time to play these various parts. But, I think McConaughey's great. And actually, I went back to look at his filmography at this time because I was like, oh, he was in just a bunch of romantic comedies. And this felt like he was trying to shed that a little bit. But if you look back at this period, in 2000, he's in a movie I love called U-571 that I think is a really fun
well
movie.
done.
Yeah, and then he's in an absolutely tweaked movie that's so upsetting called Frailty. Have you guys seen Frailty?
Yeah. Directed by Bill Paxton.
Yep, one of the more upsetting movies I saw at that point in my life. And he's great in it. He is
incredible movie.
Yeah, it is really good. It's talk about downbeat. I mean, one of the bleakest movies. So looking back on his filmography, I kind of appreciated that like McConaughey might have been known for these kind of like shucks kind of parts, but it's a really interesting filmography, and like I think he's really like, to his credit, he doesn't want to be liked in this movie. He doesn't. There's no like.
I love it.
Oh man, like he doesn't.
There's a ferocity to the way that he attacks.
And he's
the
scary.
Film.
He's with the shaved head and the beard. Like it's and he's kind of
physicality
painted
is
black.
real.
It's good.
Yeah, he's bringing it as well. I mean, you have to understand, like how as you said the word you used, Rob, committed.
Yeah.
His eyes are on the verge of like tears, look bloodshot. He is not just showing up and doing the lines. Like his physicality is incredible. He's so cut in this film. So he's clearly like there's a lot of effort there in how he's shaped his body for this part. Who would have to have the combination of being muscular, but probably there's nothing to eat, right? So you have to think he actually looks kind of different. That's awesome. He's quite iconic with the shaved head and the beard and everything and the tattoos. But I think he is so good in this. I think what is another reason that this film is an interesting outlier in that but if you were to pitch this film, I think unless it was the sort of $150 million Roland Emmerich version, what you have is kind of what would, with no disrespect, because I love these movies and I love genre cinema, it's a B movie, right?
Yeah.
Kind of, right? But you have 2 A+ Oscar-winning actors, plus Gerard Butler, so it's just such a cool thing that this movie exists. You know what I mean? Because it's so unusual to have actors of this caliber in a film like this.
Well, it's such a movie. I just watched it again 2 weeks ago, which I hadn't seen in a while. It's a Christian Bale's first movie, which is Empire of the Sun, which is an amazing film. And there was an amazing article about the movie and why it was sort of rejected when it came out, but has now been sort of rediscovered. And it's an incredible movie. And it's all told from Bale's character's point of view. And he's a kid, right? And he has this relationship with Malkovich. And it's very clearly established that Malkovich, in Bale's eyes, in Bale's character's eyes, is like the quintessential American badass hero. And that's how he sees him, and it's why he idolizes him throughout the movie. And it's weird. I do feel like in this way, this movie, Rain of Fire, is sort of trading on that image as well. Yeah. Like, they are certainly taking the sort of American G.I. Joe character, personified by McConaughey, and sort of playing with that. You wish they were doing, again, I was looking for a way to subvert it, to find the tragedy in that, or the folly in it. But the movie for some reason kind of backs off of it. And maybe that was because they didn't know what they wanted to say about the character. But I do feel like they were playing with it the same way that Empire of the Sun was playing with that image of sort of the American mercenary.
Is there like a 2.5-hour cut of this movie that obviously doesn't exist? But
I think there's 100% of stuff on the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
Especially, and we haven't gotten to her yet, but with Isabella
Skorupka? I don't. Yeah, it's a tough name.
I've always found her to be very arresting on screen, and she and Bale actually have real chemistry. It's just you don't get enough time with
you.
them.
Totally don't. No.
I love the epilogue with them actually.
Yeah, I did too.
I know it's pretty sort of stock what you'd expect from like, oh, there's a bit of glimmer of hope, blah blah blah, in terms of what's happening. But there's something really lovely about how it's done. There's a sense that they're gonna now be a unit, and there's de facto family, and
it's literally the same thing as the end of 28 Days Later. Like literally the same ending, because I just rewatched that in anticipation of the new one, and it has that same kind of like these two characters who at the beginning are a little at odds, are a family unit.
I want to talk to you about the villains in quotes of this piece. The dragons themselves.
The Americans.
The Americans.
Well, what is Butler's great line about
the American military-industrial complex?
Yeah, exactly.
No, the dragon. How do they fare as movie monsters? And should they have had more, for want of a better word, personality? What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked about Dragon Slayer briefly, but if you go back, and I would encourage anybody who's listening, if you don't want to watch the whole movie, that's fine. But go back and watch the climax of the movie on YouTube, because the dragon is one of the great practical effects. I mean, James has said this, it might be the best practical effect ever put on screen. Precisely because he has personality. It is a terrifying on-screen creature, I believe designed by Stan Winston, and it feels like it feels alive, and the proportions are correct, and it is really terrifying. And I feel like these dragons lack that same kind of personality. If you notice, like, there's a few instances in the movie where we get up close and personal in them, we get close to their eyes, but not in the way that gives them character, in my opinion.
Yes.
And Dragon Slayer is the opposite of that. Jaws, obviously, all those characters. That movie goes to great lengths to have those characters anthropomorphize the shark and give it a personality and give it sort of a real profound meaning for them. I don't think the dragons get there, despite the fact that it kills his mom. I think in theory, dragons are a great on-screen nemesis. I just didn't feel it in this movie.
I agree.
I agree, and if you think about aliens, which they're clearly trying to evoke to some extent, hence Adrian Biddle being selected as the cinematographer of this movie.
That's a great
the aliens themselves at first they're an amorphous force. But there's still a sense of they're intelligent. They're when they're problem solvers. Like the bit where they're trapped in the room, they come on the roof, the ceiling, and blah blah. They're frightening. You have the face hugger, which has its own kind of personality, etc. But what it really goes into top gear in Aliens is the alien queen, which feels like it has a very strong personality and is so terrifying.
Yeah, the best.
And the first Alien, the alien has personality as well, and of course you'd never seen anything like that but in 1979. So it is I just think they did miss a trick there with not making them have a little bit more sort of specificity and kind of character to actually when they kill the dragon at the end. There's a one shot of it where it sort of sighs and then dies. I almost felt sorry for it.
Yeah, I agree.
And you're like, I don't want to feel that.
This is dragon propaganda. I can't believe you say that on this podcast.
We're in the pocket of Big Dragon.
Big fire breather. That's where we are.
I think Jurassic Park 2, Phil, like the raptors became such, for all the same reasons you just outlined with the xenomorph, like they had so many characteristics. And I think, again, Jurassic Park sees those creatures invading our reality. Right? They have the great kitchen sequence in Jurassic Park. Aliens is the same thing, except in Aliens are invading our bodies, right? Like, and I don't know that these dragons are in any way they're not inhabiting a world that we recognize in this movie.
Yeah. The whole time I took this note to this point that you brought up is like, I wrote down, like, what did I expect this movie to be?
Yes.
And I think I expected more of like an action picture. Like, and it's just, It's a really fascinating choice because it's hard to get away from how grim and downbeat and quote unquote alien and otherworldly it feels. You know, like at times it really feels like it's like I don't know, the setting of like a Shakespeare play. It has that like
I was going to say it's almost like a Ken Loach with dragons.
Oh my god, I'm so on board. Ken Loach is still Ken. Let's go. Let's do it.
It's so bleak.
Yeah,
it's so and it's quite naturalistic in a lot of that sort of stuff at the beginning in the first act before it does bring in the action element. Well, let's talk about the action as we've parachuted into it quite neatly. How do you think this does fare on that level, like as an action movie? Rob, what do you think, Rob?
I think in the abstract, it's fucking incredible. Like when McConaughey comes in and he's talking about what they're gonna do and how they do it, you're like, this is fucking incredible. Yeah. Like they're gonna fly helicopters, have guys parachuting out with nets, and they're gonna capture dragons. It's incredible. And then literally the first time they do it, like it's so much of what you see is obscured.
Right.
And it's a little frenetic in terms of, again, the sense of geography. Like it didn't totally work for me. Like, and Biddle's obviously an incredible action shooter. I felt like every time I wanted this to transcend, it didn't ultimately do it. And obviously they were hamstrung by some of the limits of technology at the time. But I didn't, there's not one action scene in the movie that's super standout to me. And I will say at the end, I think what happens with McConaughey's character, not to spoil it, is anticlimactic.
Yes.
When I watched it, it's weird. I remembered it differently from only watching it maybe 2 months ago. Because originally we thought we were going to do this a bit sooner before we had our sort of summer break and I went to England and Liam moved. So I watched it again. And I remembered McConaughey as like sort of kamikazeing off with like the sort of Rambo style
so fucking American
explosive arrows and killing it, and he just doesn't. He like kind of fails to shoot it.
What was your plan? What was your plan, Denton?
Tried to kill it with an axe.
Well, you know,
so that's not going to work.
It's so funny you say that because at least this movie doesn't do that. Because like I was thinking, and I'm saying this with utmost respect. You know what movie Adrian Biddle shot 3 years before this is The Mummy, which I think is just like, I mean. That's like a great.
We talked about it. It's an incredible movie.
It's an incredible. I mean, we talked about it in event because it's Stephen Sommers, right? Yeah. But it's like a lesser movie would have them be like, so that was your plan, as McConaughey gets like eaten by the dragon. You know,
well, it's interesting though if it was a Stephen Sommers who has that sort of slightly lighter touch to make a kind of monster movie that is also a mainstream entertaining blockbuster. It may have been more successful, but I would say it's also be a film I probably would have liked less. Because I quite like the bleak, dystopian, dark version of it.
I totally agree. It's like I could see that version, and I think I'm less interested in. You know,
it becomes a bit lighter and lightweight.
Yeah. Well, in the Mummies. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, it's what we were saying. Like, I feel like one of these two lead characters needed. Where I feel like the arc of this movie was going is one of these two characters, probably in this case Denton, was going to ultimately use these other two as bait, right? He was going to, against their will, use them to service his own maniacal ends. But the movie has no tension in the last 20 minutes because they're all aligned. The dragons stop being so formidable. The movie comes up with reasons they just disappear, and that whole final tete-a-tete just doesn't. It's not built on any rules that they're exploiting.
You're totally right. It almost like tries to get through the last 20-25 minutes of the movie without like pointing at the fact. Like I hate nitpicking movies to death, but like you're telling me there's only one male. This has been going on for 30. It just feels very like, let's get to the end of the movie, quick, run. You know, it has that quality.
Not to evoke Jaws yet again, but it is the 50th anniversary. But I would just say Quint, basically, because of whatever self-destructive mechanism he has in him, you know, or maniacal desire to eradicate all sharks or whatever, but he leads these two characters into a precarious situation, right? Like the whole finale is built around that tension. In this case, like they're all so aligned going on this suicide mission that there's no tension around the characters. And you literally sit there that climax plays out forever in this movie. It's like 20 minutes of them just kind of running around rubble.
In the dark, in a not particularly interesting environment. What I do like about that sequence is that and you rarely see this, but there's shots of Isabella Scorupco's character just being terrified.
Yes.
For like 30 seconds in a way that feels pretty real.
She's really good.
Usually
in
they're
that
just
scene.
so courageous and here's what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna aim. We've got that one window where we'll shoot him in the glands or what, when he opens his mouth, and that will cause the explosion. And everyone's just like, okay, cool. I'm a little bit scared, but let's get on with it. Whereas she's like, no, I'm just terrified.
Right, yeah.
I really liked that aspect of it, and that kind of speaks though to the kind of what makes this film different, but also what makes it kind of less sort of populist entertainment.
Well, and I will just say, just a good shout out. I think she's a tremendous like action sort of performer. Like she is really convincing. Like going back to GoldenEye to this.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you guys will get to Vertical Limit, and I think she's very good in that movie as well. And she's just really, she makes all of this stuff very plausible. Like she's really, really convincing.
I like how she plays it very just honest and authentic of like, actually, this is really, really, really frightening
She's
situation.
a really good like leading lady because she's very like internal and quiet, and she finds things to do. Like she's a good match for Bale, which is tough because
very good.
He envelops so much of what he does as an actor because he's so tremendous. But she's really good in this.
Well, it's funny. I kept thinking of her because I know when you guys did Deep Blue Sea, like I know there was a lot of conversations about Saffron Burrows, and you wonder if Isabella Scarupo had played that lead role, even if that character was still Dr. Frankenstein, like if you would have gotten the humanity, because she does a lot with her eyes, like you said, Phil. Like you access her in a real way, and I think she brings a different dimension to these things. She's really good.
Yep. I will say that I do think that Archangel midair assault. I mean that's the definition of Philly special, guys. Like come
Hey,
on.
We're not taking anything away from you.
That's an incredible set piece.
But Phil, how did they fly the fucking plane from Iowa to the UK with the dragons all in the sky?
Yeah.
I didn't get it.
Yeah.
I did not understand how they got
that's
from.
a good point.
I am the king of suspension of disbelief. Before we got on, I was talking about how much I loved Archangel. But that one, I was like, wait, how did they get their plane from one continent to the other? They can't.
You know what my brain does when you say this, though, Rob? It goes, but helicopter.
Yeah.
That's right.
But you're right. You're 100%.
Yeah.
You're 100% right. But let's give a shout out to the Augusta Westland 109 twin-engine multi-purpose Italian light helicopter, known for its high speed and versatility.
And apparently a massive fucking catch of fuel because it flew across the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes.
But I think, fair is fair. Like, that is a fantastic. Yes, I agree. Like, it may be the execution of it is somewhat hampered because of the gloominess of it, and it is a bit sort of frenetic. But it's still just for sheer, chutzpah and that is an original idea. And any action movie that has like a really creative set piece at its center, I think want to give it a lot of respect.
We should say that our previous guest of the show, Scout Tafoya, made an unloved video about this film for RogerEbert.com.
Oh, cool.
He's a big fan. He really, and I only realized it this morning, so I haven't had a chance to watch it. But yeah, Scout is so astute about loving things for all of their picadillos that I'm very excited to see what he has to say about it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I was going to say, you guys say 5-star, 3-star movie. And I sometimes think that implies that you're comparing every movie to every other movie. And I'm like, no, I think you have to think of it in terms of as an example of what it's trying to do. And what's unique about Reign of Fire is there's not a lot of movies that are trying to do what it's
one of a kind, totally.
So it's hard to compare it to other things, except in, I think, the monster movie DNA. And that's where I think we keep coming into like, maybe it doesn't live up to it. Or at least some of the more classic examples of
I would go so far as to say that Reign of Fire is the best movie set in Northumberland in 2002 that's about dragons and helicopters fighting. I would pin my reputation on that statement.
I think you're
right.
That
is a bold claim. But we'll have to look at the other ones.
I stand by it.
New podcast, Phil? New podcast?
Stand by it. Let's talk about the last tenet, which is the humor. There is a smattering of some very good jokes, but the real stroke of genius is the Star Wars scene. And I would just like to get your... usually, we often say, meta this, meta that, but this is one of the examples of like a genuinely inspired piece of like pop cultural awareness, meta storytelling that I just thought was so delightful.
Well, and it's funny, like this is where the Die Hard DNA comes in, right? Which is you have him literally referencing Schwarzenegger and other, icons of Western silver screen. And I think, again, like to what, James's sort of point is like that makes it feel like it's an extension of our experience. And the Star Wars thing is immediate moment of recognizable sort of iconography and mythos that you hook into. So for a minute, the movie dips into something we all can appreciate and understand. And I laugh too. And again, it's also a credit to Butler. Like Butler's so good. Butler is, he's just a really compelling sort of non-straight man in the movie.
The second time I watched it, I didn't catch the little detail that Jerry does in that scene. Where it his hand, because he pretends to have his hand cut off because they're evoking Empire Strikes Back, but the kids get very upset because they're not familiar with these, and he quickly shows them that his hand hasn't really been cut off. To sort of, it's just so charming and touching, and the way the kids' reaction, because they would never have seen Star Wars, they probably never had a video, let alone a DVD. Because if you think of the mythology of the film, they've been denied technology for probably their whole lives. They've grown up in this.
The good news is
I just think it was so clever.
They didn't get the prequels, so that's a positive thing. No, but
True,
I think
good. No Jar Jar.
No, and I think also that like
have to deal with that.
In addition to being Misa, okay. Anyways, in addition to being funny, Misa mistake. In addition to being funny, it's also sad. Because it evokes a world that's gone. One of my favorite things of the last 10 years is Station 11, the HBO series based on the book about trying to keep culture alive after an apocalypse. And it's so moving seeing people being like, no, we have to reinvent, we have to go and do these plays and do this and present this to people and keep it alive. And there's something, it humanizes these guys immediately because they're us. They're dudes like us who grew up and can't watch Star Wars anymore. And it again, it's such a
when a joke isn't just funny, but it's also really clever. And thematically congruent because it's about knights. They literally say the Black Knight and the White Knight.
Right.
And you're making me think about that as well. Like when he appears in the fireproof suit to rescue the guy that goes rogue. Right. That's very much like a knight.
But also cyberpunky too, right? It has this
there's real brilliance in this film. There really is. It just sort of didn't quite kind of commit to a lane.
Well, it never becomes the stew that it needs to be. It's a little too disparate.
Still, I can't not love it for its for what it reaches.
Its wings.
Yeah.
And just to say, Butler, it's easy now just with most of the things that he's done and where his career's gone, you forget what a sort of nimble kind of actor he was. And I don't know if you guys have seen it. I can't remember if it was before or after this. I think it was after this, but maybe a year after. There's a movie he did called Dear Frankie, which I always tell everybody, if you've never seen it, with him and Emily Mortimer, he's incredible in the movie. He's incredible. It's a romance. He plays a guy who's a longshoreman who basically, as a favor to a single mom, agrees to play the mom's kid's dad, who's on shore leave, and for a weekend, to give this kid a weekend with his dad.
I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna cry.
And it's all of that.
Yeah.
And I will just say, because I have to evoke it because it's an amazing moment. He and Emily Mortimer have a moment where they stand in the doorway and don't say any of the things you think they're supposed to say to each other in this moment. And they just stand in silence for, I think, a minute. And it's on screen for a minute. And he is unbelievable. And it's worth watching if you guys have never seen the movie. And it reminds you of what Butler is capable of.
I love him. I'm always a huge fan. I just watched on the flight back. I watched the Den of Thieves sequel, which I love.
Which is awesome.
Dude, that movie.
Those two movies are amazing.
Ass. It's so good, and it's weirdly moving. I found myself
it's fantastic.
Those movies are. That director is the real deal.
He really is.
So well put together. Yeah.
I'm so glad you liked it, Phil, because
it's Butler boys, rise up.
We're big. It's cool because you're getting into his era now. There's going to be more and more of him. I think he shows up in one of the Tomb Raiders, but you just in this movie you're reminded of just how nimble he was.
Yeah. Our guest of the show who's also a 3-hitter, Bill Gabiri, wrote a piece about the Gerard Butler weepy. And how much he loves Gerard Butler and these kind of Greenland, that movie he made.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, and the action movies where he invokes this depth of feeling in his performances. But he's so wonderful, and it's silly to say, but these Big Nick later performances, of which he's at least going to do 3, is really special.
It's he's found his most iconic role potentially.
Yes.
He's had quite a few of them potentially.
Yeah.
He's had like, franchises and everything,
Yeah.
but that one just is like, this is what I can really do, and like unfettered, unencumbered, kind of on the edge,
Yes.
and it's
And yet,
awesome.
I can't wait for that late career Oscar movie that he's going to do. I don't know what it is, but it's like it's there in the ether. Like someone's going to.
He's almost drafting behind McConaughey.
Yeah.
McConaughey had that phase of being doing all the rom-coms and
Yeah.
maybe losing his identity a little bit as an actor, and then came back with a vengeance. And I feel like Butler, is kind of is sort of. Is doing that with those movies and has still loads of time to do more amazing and interesting work.
Den of Thieves Pantera is so fucking good. I mean, when they're eating the
opening
shawarma,
heist in that movie is
I just want to eat shawarma with those guys and hang out with them. That's all I want.
Yeah, it's like a hang.
Extraordinary. That scene when they sit there is kind of extraordinary.
Incredible. And it was like, I watched it on a plane too, and I'm like crying on a plane watching Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, and like, this is a 5-star movie.
And it's like 2.5 hour long, and it holds its length.
They're amazing.
Those guys that director is exceptional.
I totally agree.
I want to see him do something else because I think he's really talented.
I also want him to do 5 more Den of Thieves.
Dude, I'd watch all. I love those movies. I've been ringing the bell.
I
for
want
Den of
both.
Thieves.
Yeah,
Since
totally.
I saw the first one, I've never
Amazing.
seen it.
Awesome.
Like, this is fucking incredible.
Well, McConaughey, to this point of earlier, is in the new Paul Greengrass movie, The Lost Bus, which is about the paradise.
Produced by my boss, Jason Blum. So there you go.
Yeah. And I am dying to see that. I think getting him in a role like that, he's great in the rom-coms too, but it's nice to see him doing a movie like this again too.
Yeah, it's gotten good reviews out of TIFF this week, so I think everyone's gonna. I think everyone will enjoy it.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Well, let's take one last break, and then we will wrap things up with our 2 favorite sections of the show: the Die Hard Oscars and the Double Jeopardy Trivia Quiz. We will be right back. And we're back with our favorite section of the show, the Die Hard Oscars, aka the Action Movie Awards. Hopefully, you all know the deal by now. Let's start with the John McClane Yippee-Ki-Yay Award for Best Line. I have, I think 4 or 5.
Phil, I have to
pretty well written.
We have to request that if any of these lines are said by Christian Bale or Gerard Butler, that you do your best accent.
Do them in a Cockney accent.
Yeah.
A bit of heavy breathing going on here. Unfortunately, I don't know if any of them do. Sadly.
Bummer.
I like the exchange at the beginning of the film with the guy who goes, he's sort of slagging off his mum, the construction worker, and then he goes, "Quinn, what brings you to the arsehole of the world?" And then the kid goes, "You're passing through it. What does that make you?"
Yeah, that was good. I like the line about only smoking when I drink, which is like,
he's great. Yeah. The kid is great, and the dialogue is really good. Yeah. That was lovely. This was another one that I just enjoyed for British profanity. Forget the bird and use the scope, you wanker.
Yeah, that was good.
That was said by AJ, played by Alexander Siddig.
What a wonderful actor that guy is. I love him. I love Alexander
Did not
Siddig.
enjoy his experience on the movie by all accounts. If you
really?
It's like right there in the research. Yeah,
he's in a wonderful movie called Cairo Time that you guys should check out if you haven't seen it, with Patricia Clarkson. It's a beautiful adult romance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Only one thing worse than a dragon: Americans.
Yeah! I knew it, but
said by Creedy.
Well,
played by
no
Gerard
accent
Butler.
though. That's
what
a tough
fantastic! I'm afraid if that's one you can't get wrong.
You can't get it
wrong. You can't.
That's why we have Gerard Butler here to deliver it for us.
I could possibly be able to do it, but if I'm even mildly off,
he is He's such
the Scottish
so funny.
Contingent will have my guts for garters.
Right.
That's an amazing line. Also, I love the bit where Christian Bale says, "If anything happens, you know what to do," and he goes, "No, I've no idea."
Yeah.
I've no idea. So that was terrible. That's why I shouldn't have done it.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Yeah, I thought it just brings that light touch that also feels he's still tonally in sync with the movie. Which is brilliant. And then Van Zandt's line where he goes, "Don't be a fool. We can do this easy, or we can do this real easy."
Easy, yeah.
I loved that line. There's actually and I loved his line about like, "Look out the window. Eden isn't burning; it's burnt."
Yeah.
Which on a more sort of poetic flourish. Any additions or a pick amongst?
I like the last one. I we could do this easy, or we could do this real easy.
That's a good one.
Badass.
Yeah.
The Americans line is great.
I'm going with the Americans.
It's just
line.
also so well placed as a bit of humor that you wouldn't necessarily
you
get.
need it in that moment
Totally.
as well.
Yeah. What a movie star that guy is. Jeez.
Fantastic. The Hans Gruber Exceptional Thief Award for stealing the film. 3 nominees. Alice Krieg as Quinn's mum Karen, only in the film very briefly, but we love her. Isabella Scorupco as Alex, but Gerard Butler as Creedy. I mean, it has to be, right?
Yeah, I think that's
With
right.
no disrespect to the ladies that we just mentioned who are
Big Nick
great.
wins.
Yeah.
I mean, forget about it. Like, it's the
let's go get a
written for it.
shawarma. Yeah, when his name popped up, I was like, yeah! Like I'd kind of forgotten he was in it.
The Dick Thornburg Award for Dick of the Movie. It's not that. Not that
dragons?
many. That construction worker that I just mentioned. The character's name is Jess. He's played by Desi Gallagher, who isn't
That's
very
his
nice.
dad, right? That's also the kid's dad. Correct?
I didn't read it that way personally.
I did.
Oh, wow. That's really
I never read it that way because the kid, because I just rewatched it. So I there's a bit where the kid it's a plot that goes nowhere, but it feels like realistic texture. The kid gives her a letter, the mom, and it says it's a scholarship. You never really find out what's going on, but then she says, "Oh, it's £3,000 a year. We can't afford that." And he goes, "Maybe Dad could pay it," and then goes like, "Sorry," as if the implication was. They're divorced.
Yeah, or they use an absentee
around.
father figure or something.
That's how I read it.
Yeah.
I read it. I read it as his
Maybe
dad,
I'm wrong.
but that's so interesting. Yeah,
Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I interpreted it. But he could be. I mean,
but
maybe.
if it is his dad, he's the dick of the movie for sure.
Yeah. Either way, he's not. He's in the running.
Yeah.
There's him because he goes like, "Oh, that bitch doesn't know what she's doing," you know.
Yeah.
Then there's the disobedient community member Eddie, played by David Kennedy, for ignoring Quinn's instructions, leaving the castle and getting his family killed. They're really the only 2 nominees, unless you want to put the dragon. But we don't even know which dragon.
Well, there's only one of them's a male.
Yeah,
right.
So
the one with the dick.
There you go.
I would go.
The dragon with the dick wins dick of the movie.
Yeah, the dragon.
He is kind of the big bad.
Yeah,
true.
My pick is the guy who might be his father, but might not. Also, why are you lighting a cigarette right then? I know you're lighting the cigarette for plot development purposes, but like, why are you lighting a cigarette right now? Come on.
Because it's cool. Because it
Yeah.
looks
It
cool
reminded
and
me
it's
of the
ironic.
Chill Factor cigarette that we talked about, where the guy lights a cigarette, and you're like, why is this guy lighting a cigarette in this movie? Anyway, I don't know.
What's
Kill factor. Woo!
Chill at the beginning when he
I love that we brought it back, guys.
right before, we're doing our best over here. Yeah, no, we had a conversation about the smoking as a bit in movies as like kind of a crutch to push something forward, and this is like
I
a good
remember.
example of it.
It's the actor that we talked about with you, Rob, who's in the P.T. Anderson movies.
Oh,
and
Kevin
what's his
O'Connor.
name? Yes,
Kevin O'Connor, incredible.
Yeah.
He has nothing to do. The character has nothing to do, so he just smokes just
I
because,
wonder how
even
they
though he's
got
about
him.
to set off a
Been
bomb.
there. He must have been like in town that day.
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly. Because he's
that's
got
a whole
like
other-
3 lines, and he's like one of the third most recognizable person in the movie.
Let's say the dragon,
Okay.
the big the male dragon. I think wins Dick of the
I
movie.
have a whole theory on Chill Factor, by the way, but we can talk about it offline.
Yeah,
We need to hear it
Well,
right now.
My suspicion on Chill Factor, when you guys covered it, Phil, I might have texted you this. I actually don't think that was the movie at all that they intended to make. I think that something fell out. An entire movie fell apart. And they had to capitalize on money that was already being spent on an incentive that they already applied for. Because if you look at the casting announcements, I went all the way back to look at when Skeet and Cuba they weren't cast but a month out from the start, which means that the movie was already running before someone was deep in prep on a movie before they brought them in. So I feel like and then they brought the writer out on set to do rewrites who had never done anything before. Any sort of on-screen writing was the writer on set. I think a different movie fell out. They brought in an entirely different movie on a script that they had that had not been fully developed, and they shot Chill Factor with a director who had never, I don't think, ever directed a feature.
No,
again.
he was a cinematographer.
Exactly. I think someone had dropped out of the previous movie, and they brought this guy in, and they said, "Here's your opportunity." That was my theory on Chill Factor. Nothing against the movie.
Coming soon, a new 10-part investigation.
Follow the money.
Well, this is the thing. As
true.
I've been pitching it to Tapley, it has to be a 50-part investigation into Chill Factor called 50 Degrees, right? In the spirit of 50 miles per hour.
I think it would give people a tremendous amount of insight into how movies like this come together. And if I did a real deep dive on it, and I remember even looking at the companies that financed it, I think fell apart right after it.
It makes the whole thing make a bit more sense because it does feel it felt so slipshod,
it did.
And kind of thrown together.
Yes.
That it was like, that would make kind of more sense that it was like a salvage job of a movie that fell apart.
Yeah, and
they just
if
did
you
what
look
they
at
could.
how much money they spent on it, it makes me think that it was that money was allocated to a much bigger movie.
Right.
Because it's not a big movie and it should have cost 50 or 60 million. Anyway, we are digressing. Sorry, everybody.
No. Once you mentioned Chill Factor, we had to
follow
give
the money. A 10-part investigative series into the making of Chill Factor.
Our final Oscar is Best Death. I've got 3 nominees. Creedy tragically being killed by dragon fire and having that one moment where he knows it's gonna, it's gonna get blazed by that inferno. Looks back. Van Zandt's spectacular moment of mid-air Harry Carey / self-sacrifice, which is also kind of stupid.
Mid-air Harry Carey is my band name, just so you know. That's what I'm going to start.
And then Quinn killing the male dragon at point blank range and facing his fears in the finale.
It's Creedy because it's the most meaningful death in the movie, in my opinion.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Rob?
I would go with
Or have an ad?
I would go with Creedy. I think Denton's death is so disappointing.
Yeah,
it's hard.
You kind of want him to actually sort of achieve something with this, but it feels kind of meaningless in the way that it's staged. It's sort of like, wow, that is incredibly like crazy in a kind of kamikaze courageous way, but it also didn't really achieve anything.
Yeah,
you just kind of tried to hit
look like
it with
an idiot,
axe.
But
it sort of undermines the characters. You want to sort of see him, I don't know, like he had that cool tank, like it was Chekhov's tank, but it never fired.
Right.
You want to see like a tank shoot one of these things at point blank range, and just obliterate it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the sequel that I'm working on. The Double Jeopardy trivia quiz is our final section of the show. It was a bit tricky to come up with things, but amazingly this didn't come up, so here's a gimme for you. Question number 1, you'll know the rules by now. You get 1 clue.
Phone Al.
Which member of the Reign of Fire cast would go on to play the lead role in their own Die Hard on a Blank action movie trilogy?
Rob.
Butler. Yeah.
Can you name all 3 movies?
Phantom of the Opera.
Olympus has fallen, Angel has fallen, and London has fallen?
Yes,
wow.
is correct.
Aren't they making another one?
Full marks.
Yeah.
I think there's another one.
There's been talk of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question number 2. Actress Isabella Scorupco is well known for playing the Bond girl, in quotes, Natalia Simonova in GoldenEye. But in which Bond film does Gerard Butler appear?
I know. Tomorrow Never Dies.
Is correct.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
In which he plays the leading seaman of the HMS Devonshire.
Yes.
I
like that movie. I like that one too. It gets a bum rap.
It's got great action in it.
It does. Yeah. And Michelle Yeoh. Just like
Spottiswoode Suns rise up. Question number 3 in Convoluted Corner. Okay. This is a highbrow one. Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Oh, I got it. I totally got it. We have discussed many times that Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream was director John McTiernan's secret melody for Die Hard. But which member of the Reign of Fire cast appeared in Michael Hoffman's 1999 big screen adaptation of that play?
Christian Bale.
Is correct.
Yeah.
Do you know who he played? For a bonus point, you've already got the money. The speedboat's yours. Don't worry.
Is he play? I forget the problem is I'd have to look at that. Look, can I look without looking who at the thing? Can I look at the cast list because I can't remember the names? Is that
if you like, but
I want to get it right.
I want to let people get on with their lives.
Demetrius
is correct.
Yes!
Yay! Full maximum score, you gentlemen. You crushed it. What a team!
Wow.
Kind of was going to say as well, like in some ways, Reign of Fire, because of this odd structure, and it doesn't go where you were set, where it actually might have been maybe a better movie. I don't know. It's up for debate. If McConaughey had actually his character had kind of was like actually revealed to be evil and unhinged and psychotic at
better
the end.
Movie, maybe.
Kind of twisted. In the end, it's actually structured more like a buddy movie. Speaking of buddy movies,
Yes. Transition suns rise up.
Next time on 48 Hours of Body Movies, the other potentially graceful transition is that, as we mentioned, is that the shooter of this film, Adrian Biddle, also shot Thelma and Louise, which we are covering and have recorded, and it got kind of emotional. It's a very special film, and one of the things that we talked about on that episode was a little bit of what resonated with me with this is this idea of like characters being in tune with their landscape. Something that film, it's on a kind of low frequency in that film, but it's definitely there. It's kind of there in this
incredible movie.
Amazing movie. I'm not sure because of exactly when this will come out. It will either be Thelma and Louise or possibly The Hard Way, which we'll be doing before.
Also a movie in touch with its landscape. It's really good.
Huge fan of The Hard Way. Incredible movie.
I love it.
It's good.
I love it. You a fan of those? You a fan of The Hard Way?
I think it's an incredible movie.
Yeah.
I think John Badham is an incredible action director. Incredible.
One of the underrated kings.
Yeah, I know, Liam, you had your issues with it, but
I still love it. I mean, I moved to Seattle because of it. No, but I do really like. I really do like it.
And the sequel's even better. I think. Which we will also be doing on 48 Hours of Body Movies, which, if you're not familiar, for shame, is our Patreon podcast. www.patreon.com/48 Hours of Body Movies. That's 48 Hours of Body Movies. What's the deals at the moment, Liam, with subscription?
$5 a month gets you 2 episodes of the show for you to listen to, and then there's a $7 tier that currently gets you a shout out, but might be featuring something even cooler. I'm not going to announce it yet because we have to work out a few of the details.
Look out for that. And you'd be joining our guest Rob, who is a subscriber to
Rob, by the way.
The show. So thanks for your support.
Huge fan, you guys. You guys have been doing an amazing job.
Oh, thank you.
Dual tracks. Yeah,
thank you.
It's been really
Rob.
Cool.
Rob, we've loved having you back. You're one of our our favorite guests. Your insights are always push us to new places and make us think about these movies differently in interesting ways based on your experiences both as an executive and a fan and an aficionado of genre cinema. Is there anything else that you want to sort of say about this movie, or that you want to say about anything that you've got going on before we let you?
The only thing I wanted to shout out was the editor properly, because he also cut and won an Oscar for a movie that I love dearly called Witness, that I'm sure you guys know very well. And he also cut Thelma and Louise, and obviously had his hands full with this movie for all the reasons that we talked about, but he's a super talented cutter. Really, really good. And we didn't get a chance to talk about the editing a lot, but I do think, to your guys' point earlier, it moves. The movie is fairly tight despite some of the inconsistencies, and I think he did his job really well.
I just want to say that I think Witness is like one of the great fucking movies ever made, and also one of the sexiest movies ever made. One
of the best romances ever.
Incredible. I mean, get Harrison Ford with Peter Weir more. I wish we had more of that. I mean, unbelievable.
By the way, that's when you were talking about the Van Sant character, just really quick, I kept imagining Ford in Mosquito Coast, thinking of where that mania could take you, that obsession could take you. But maybe that's in the sequel that Phil's writing right now.
Rain 2. I don't know.
Rain to Fire.
What should be what would be it? Rain of Fire 2 : Pantera.
What would it
be? What would it be? I don't know. Well, you'll find out when that script hits your desk. Rob, thank you. Thanks so much. We'll let you fade into the twilight.
Man. Love you, man.
You're so welcome here as one of our favorite guests, and we always love having you on. Next
time on this show.
Thanks to Tyson.
Oh, thank you, Tyson. For doing Hubley, you're the man.
Next time on this show will be Phone Booth.
Woo! Joel Schumacher. Baby.
We'll be back next time with Joel fucking Schumacher.
And Larry Cohen.
Die Hard on a Blank is a podcast from Philip Gothorn and Liam Billingham. Tyson Hubley makes our art. You can hear exclusive episodes of our Patreon show at patreon.com/48 Hours of Buddy Movies. Rate, review, subscribe, and tell your action movie loving friends about the show. See you next time on Die Hard on a Blank.